Let's kick this off. We're here to discuss the life safety service agreement that currently exists between the town of Plymouth and Plymouth State University, which is this the end of the fourth year? Is it a 4-year?
2 years.
2 year. Okay.
It's specifically 2 years. 2 years ago.
So the existing one was a 2-year agreement, which is, just for context, a little bit different than the agreements that the town had with Plymouth State in the past. The past ones prior to 2 years ago were much more sort of detailed in terms of, we're asking for this line item because of this usage and this line item because of this usage. And it was very kind of, I think it attempted to be fair based on, impact to the town of exact services and systems. And then 2 years ago, it changed to this more generic, this much money for, general services in the town. There's some of the discussions that the board has had. I think we're very interested in trying to get back to a point where there's a little bit more, some more detail to what's there instead of just a number that feels, at least to us, feels just a little bit arbitrary. The other piece that we have been talking about is we know that the university has fluctuation in your student population, and that perhaps you're looking at a greater period of fluctuation in population in the coming few years. So maybe we use some sort of multiplier on some of those costs that is more attached to head count and less, again, arbitrary. Of course, if there are, and hopefully this isn't the level of fluctuation in reality, but if there are 2,000 students on campus or 10,000 students on campus, that has a very different impact to life safety, right? So we've been thinking that maybe something that we do tries to take that into account because we think that might be more fair to the university. All that being said, we also feel like we don't have as much detail as we would currently like in terms of that impact to you right now. And what we would love to start discussions around is an extension of the current agreement for 1 year that has a small inflationary percentage increase from what it's been, to give us time so that we're not here, on the dawn of that other agreement expiring, or I guess right before the dawn, trying to figure all that out and trying to come up with and figure out some of those detailed impact numbers, and instead give us all 1 more year to think through that and get a good number to agree upon. I don't know how any of that sits with you. I don't know what the university has been thinking or what context you all have to sort of kick off these conversations, but I think that
reflects what I remember.
Oh, the one other point that I wanted to raise was, and I think Marlon, you were in attendance at a town meeting this year. But one of the charges that we were given at town meeting was to work with nonprofits in our town around, some fair pilot agreements or some sort of revenue from some of the nonprofits in town. We've got, is the number 65%? I just want to make sure I get it right.
65 or like 61?
65% of the potential taxable value in this town comes from university, hospital, the various nonprofits and things. So there is a great deal of pressure on the townspeople. So they've asked us to work extra hard at that particular component. So that's just a context, from the charge that we've been given as a board from the community. That brings us to here.
Well, we really just came to listen today and hear what you had to say. I mean, clearly, if you look at the university, we've been trying to the extent we can, even though we have negative budgets, is to try to help support the town. I think we've been a nonprofit that has tried to do that.
Agreed.
It's become increasingly difficult, of course. I think because sometimes the utilities, particularly the water situation, has gotten a little crazy for us as the major user of water, and as I don't see much cost control there. I don't know what's going on down at the water.
It's not our issue.
Yeah, I know it
That's
isn't.
the problem, right?
I know it isn't. We all have that as a problem in some ways or another. But, we wanted to listen, see what you had to say. Yeah, we're down students again this year. So far.
Don, I need to stop you just for a minute. I'm going to have you pull the mic over.
Sure.
So that we make sure that we can, and also when you guys are speaking, people can't hear you just in the room. So I don't know what
Oh,
it sounds
was I
like online
okay.
as well. So-
Yeah.
Oh, is that the
Okay,
issue?
sorry.
I usually don't get told that I'm too quiet. That's rare for me. Are you able to hear in the back there?
Yes, I can't hear a thing he's saying.
President Burks?
Right.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear half of what you had to say either.
Yeah, I'll get the microphone a little closer. Again,
Please.
usually I'm plenty loud. Sorry about that.
Well, thank you, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
So, to just give an overview of what I said is, we're here to really listen, see what you have to say, and we've tried to be supportive of the town to the extent we can. It's been a hard time for higher education, particularly the last couple of years. We had frozen tuition. We've got increased costs from places like water lines. I think we maybe have $1 million extra in costs there. I mean, it's a really substantial cost increase from the utilities overall. So it's tough, but we've tried to, and we'll continue to try to be supportive of the town. So that's kind of where we are as far as the university goes. I mean, we were just working on and had a series of meetings last week as to how do we talk to the state and be honest about the needs of higher education, and the fact that funding now is, without adjustments for inflation, is still about 25% less than it was in 2013. So it's a difficult environment right now. We try to be partners with the town to the extent we can do it. Okay.
Are you pursuing a legislative agenda to make sure that you get properly funded?
That was what the talk was about last week, as to how do we get across to our legislature that if you want higher education in the state, you got to do something about it. So I think we keep pushing the issue, but I think we really came to the understanding this year that we need to be a lot more persuasive about our situation, and maybe a lot more honest about the situation. I mean, these are New Hampshire kids, really, and that's our goal, to really educate well our New Hampshire kids and to keep them in the state. But we got the lowest support from the state and the highest tuition relatively. And 60% of our students are leaving the state to go get an education elsewhere and stay there. So we struggle with trying to get the message across that it would be the benefit for the state and our communities if we were funded better. And it's not that we are asking for a whole lot. I was looking at the map of the next up level from us, and the funding they get per student, and the next one up's like 25% more funding.
The next
per
one up
student.
within the state or the next one up nationally?
bottom.
Nationally. So we're at the bottom.
Right.
Go the next one up, they get 25% more per student. So that's a big difference, when you figure at the bottom. And then to get to the next higher position, you've got to go up 25%.
So you got a two-pronged, though. You have the legislature that's providing funds, but you also have the university system of New Hampshire that allocates the, divide
Yes.
The resources, yeah.
You mean the 70-14-14-2?
Yeah, right.
Yes, I did read the minutes.
Yeah, you're on top of it. And I think that's part of an issue too that we discuss is, somewhere or another, either the allocations have got to change, we got to find a way to get more more support from the state, at least for Keene and Plymouth. I really do believe that's the case, and I think that's what most of the discussion was about last week. We had some really extensive meetings, both here and down in Concord, because the situation's getting to the point where we've been fortunate in some ways. We've been able to keep our heads above water for the last 7 years, but it gets tougher every year. And so everything is a challenge as far as that goes. But I think part of it is getting the understanding to the trustees, as well as, and I think that's coming across to the trustees, that, we do provide an excellent education, but we're streamlined as much as possible over the last 7 years. And you've seen that in the actions we've had to take over that period of time, that there's only so much you can go on without getting to the point where you're starting to cut out the strength of your educational opportunities you offer the students here in New Hampshire. So it's like the town. We grapple with the same things you do in trying to make things work and fit together. It's a scarce environment to try to provide the benefits that the students of this state really need to be successful and to stay here. And it seems like to me there's such an area of a valuable investment for the future of the state to have that educated population. And we're even looking at how do we work with the community colleges to offer more capability, particularly in the trades. What can we do to really provide more supports and build more houses? We have more places for people to stay. Right now we can't bring faculty and staff in. We can't find a place for them to live. It's just really tight. So lots of things. I was making a list of the things as we were discussing between emails this morning, a list of the things that we have to work with to be able to keep our education, continue to provide a great education for our students. And it's tough, and we're doing what we can, I think, in the best way we can to provide the best education possible and support the communities that we're a part of. But it gets tougher every year, honestly.
Can't you allocate a floor at Merrill Place for future professors and such? Think of great solutions for you.
Yeah, no, we're thinking of everything, I tell you.
Building your own wells, save $1 million bucks.
Yeah, I'm telling you, building our own housing somewhere. Yeah, we've actually taken some of the houses on campus and renovated them, and we're actually renting them out to our faculty and staff, so they got a place to stay for a while. So it's like I was telling the chair of the board, I said, over the last 7 years, we've used just about every trick in the book to try to keep going well, and it's just, we're getting to that point where I think somebody has to make some decisions about it. I think we fared far better than our partner institution in Keene, but we both feel the same pressure. I think all of us feel the same pressure.
Does Keene have about a 2,500 census right now?
Yeah. That's
Up from like 5,000 or something like that?
yeah.
Wow.
So it's, you can imagine the impact on that campus and the town from that. It's significant, so.
So how's the, reapportionment of like legislators, have to do with, I mean, you're going to have a whole new suite of legislators to work with?
Yeah, we don't know how that's going to work out either. We are going to have
Sounds like it might work out better for you, but I don't know.
Well, I'm hopeful that, I think part of it is us making the case to the legislatures. I think we've been somewhat timid in our request and explanations of what we need as a university set up to be all we can be for the communities and the students we serve. And I think that's what we're trying to do. And I think we're getting on board with that. The interim chancellor wrote a summary of our discussions last week, and it had at the top sentence, if we want to have a great sustainable education in our state and have that opportunity provided for the students, we have to find a way to be able to fund that opportunity, and that we've done much of the cost cutting and the reapportionment and the rethinking and the specialization of what we're trying to do. At the same time, tried to address the key programs that the state and the region needs, and we need the state to be, and the system to be supportive of us as we move forward. So I think we're at the point of having to really think carefully about how we go forward as a system to meet the needs of the citizens of the state.
And I think, so maybe you want to share a little bit of what one of the commissioners on the board talked about, the income the state has right now.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so one of the...
They're talking to the microphone.
Yeah, you want to just pull that over closer to you, Marlon?
In Thursday's meeting, one of the commissioners on the board commented on the fact that they have more money coming in every month right now, as far as revenue goes, into the state than they've had
Okay. Yeah.
forever, right? And so now is the time that there is money there, if you were going to ask for it, whether you get it or not. But I thought it was really interesting because he's not somebody who typically would talk like that.
Yeah, right. So I think it's a lively discussion that's going on with the trustees and with the state increasingly. And I look forward to see what's happening. It probably is wise to let this year go by and see how this comes out, because I think there's a lot in play right now about how this is going to turn out in the long run. So.
And I will add, if you recall, whoever was here then, one of the reasons we went with 2 instead of 3 was to have this kind of conversation. So neither of us would be locked into, because everything was changing so much. So, there was I know at the time there were people like, I thought this was always a 5-year agreement or a 4-year agreement, but I think we all decided it made sense to do it for just 2 years.
So was that signed in 2020?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was also a pretty unique time to be signing any sort of agreement.
Absolutely right. It
Yeah,
was the summer of 2020.
yeah.
And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and that was not good for any of us. So,
February.
yeah.
February.
February
Yeah.
of 2020.
So right before.
Yep.
Yeah, in fact, right before.
Right before.
Yeah.
What other information? What do you all need? What can we help with to you said you wanted to listen today. What sort of information would be helpful as you go back and think about what this looks like?
Well, I think from the standpoint, to the extent you can, and I know you've got also requests in to the state and are looking for additional support, but I think sometimes it's hard for people in the legislature to understand the impact of college campuses in the region that they are part of. Although it's true that, we go back and forth sometimes on all the services that the town has to provide for the campus. If the campus wasn't here and you didn't have a college community here, it'd be a very different town. Some might say it's a better town, some might say it's a worse town, but I think it would be tough for the town to be anything like it is without that. And I think we do have that impact. Our students have that impact on supporting the many businesses that are in the town. And I think sometimes it's hard to understand that. When we look at the numbers from the students that come in from outside the state in all the 3 campuses, as well as the ones in the state, but particularly looking at the funding that comes in from the outside the state for the university system, there are multiple, let's see, from just the research that's done, overall there's $100 million that comes into the state. And then for the dollars that come in from each of the students, which gets spent here, basically, the out-of-state students coming in, which is roughly a 50% mix of our student population, that brings roughly on the order of, let's say, we've got about 20 to 30 million at least into a community. So you've got those types of numbers, and you think, I was just down in Massachusetts, and the one of our colleagues' campuses were evaluating it for a NETCHI review. The university there gets 23% of its tuition from the state. What we get to actually spend here at Plymouth is 10%, okay? 10% of the tuition. There's a big difference between that kind of support. And they thought they were in a tough situation, but when I explained to them the situation we were in, they said we got to stop complaining because this is an entirely different situation. And I think you just get down to the point where that's where you really need to start looking and saying, what can we do? Do you realize what universities bring into a state versus what you're spending on the education you're providing? And the truth of the matter is, dollars coming into the state that get spent in the state are far more than what the state is investing in the universities that they have.
Yeah, of course, from that same funding perspective, almost 100% of our funding comes from property taxes, right? And so it's true that we have students who live in some off-campus housing. And it is true that we collect property taxes through some of those businesses that the students spend. But it's also not the same story as Massachusetts, where you've got income tax from the people who are earning in the community. You have sales tax from the people who are spending those dollars in the community. So we also have some pretty strong pressures that come from
I'm just commiserating with
Yeah,
you.
I agree.
That's all.
And to go to your original point of do we see how much of a positive impact the university has on our town? I think universally, of course, yes. The university is a big part of the character of this community, and so you're a big part of our success. At the same time, we've got to staff a certain level of police. We have to have a tower ladder truck. We have to, maintain roads to a certain standard. There's money to be spent, and I don't think any of us want to be unreasonable about coming to an agreement here that makes it clear to the taxpayers and to the community that we are in it together, but also doesn't put an undue financial burden on you all while you're already facing some pretty big challenges.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I think that's a good approach.
And I would also say one of the things we've been talking about is, and Don kind of alluded to this, but is, as we get to that specific ask to the state, right, or to the governor, I think we're going to want support from the community to say, this is the right thing for you all to do.
Right.
And to me, I think we haven't done a great job of kind of that grassroots support to say to legislators, do you want to be on, do you want it to be on your watch that Plymouth State fails? Do you want it to be, it adds to the community? So I think we may be coming to some of you and people in town and business owners to say, we need your voice along with our voice because this affects everyone.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have a better voice, as far as legislatively, though, with a different senator who is a college town, and also, Sally Fellows will still be on, and we'll have a couple of new reps that will probably be very sympathetic to what you're doing, and an executive counselor that theoretically, either way, it's a primary right now, but either way, it's going to be a win-win.
Right.
So.
Yep.
We're hopeful.
Yeah, well, same here.
Yeah, for sure.
And I shouldn't say we're not worried about Plymouth failing, but we are worried about being able to provide the absolute best education we can provide to students under a very strained budgetary situation, which is also a lot of our students struggle with paying for their tuition. So it's just rough all the way around. You try to find a medium ground where the students can still be successful, paying oftentimes more than they have to pay out of state, and be able to stay here and build a community and a life in the state with that kind of funding profile. That's the challenge we face.
We literally have dozens of New Hampshire students who would want to stay in state to go to school, but they go out of state because the out-of-state tuition is cheaper than the in-state tuition is in New Hampshire.
Now, we like to think we provide a better education.
But it's just, when it comes to a bottom line like that,
It's tough. And I think that's where the state hasn't really woken up to the fact that over the last probably 10 years, there's been a real shift in the educational support at states around the outside of New Hampshire versus the state of New Hampshire itself. And so now the playing field has shifted dramatically over the course of time. And it affects students as they look at what they want to do and where they want to go. So, and you mix that with the housing opportunities when they're trying to start out a life in the state, and it's a tough sell. So, we're going to be a great retirement community, the whole state.
Great.
No. Except for there'd be no one there to wait on me.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Or
And I think
shovel
we're
the
already
snow.
seeing that.
I'll
We
wait
live
on
in a
it,
changing world.
Yeah. Very much so.
Mary and Neil, did either of you have any questions or comments?
So just curious, have you had a chance to read running out the agreement? And is there anything, Zach pointed out to providing more detail, would that help in your decision process?
I don't think it would help us because we kind of know, because we've been involved in it before, and we know what the various elements of the cost are from the state. It might help you when you're talking to the various constituencies. And if it's helpful to you and helpful for us to discuss those items, I'm glad to. It doesn't really change the resources that we have available, but maybe it would say this is where things are. Maybe this is where we could move some funds from one area to another. I don't know. Where we could look at things
Would
from
it,
that
would it be
perspective.
helpful to you to have some component of that agreement based on a student population multiplier?
Yeah, I think that makes some sense. Certainly as how things progress with the university. I wouldn't know how to do it right now, but
Right, same.
I think it's worth the discussion and thinking about, because I think our student population is shifting. We're about full-time equivalents about 3753 or something like that right now.
Is that
Oh,
both
yeah.
grad and undergrad?
That's undergrad.
It's just undergrad.
Yeah. And grad, actually, the FTE level has been growing a little bit. Not a whole lot, but we have added that DPT program, which,
Physical therapy.
yeah, which has resident students. So they're full-time throughout the year, whereas a lot of students that we had in the past at the graduate level were part-time. And so we had a lot of graduate students, maybe 1,400, but the actuality of the FTEs involved were very small. In fact, when I first came here and looked at the income from the graduate programs, it was $300,000 versus the millions that we get from, incoming students from other areas. That's net of the cost, direct costs that were associated with it. So we kind of do a thing where we look at what's the cost of a program versus the direct cost. The overhead for the whole campus and all the other things runs, about 50% of that. So, but looking at just that, it made a minuscule contribution to the success of the overall university. So we started looking at what programs we really needed to have where we could be unique and have a capability where we increase the FTE levels in ways that benefit the students and the communities. And some programs like we do a lot of 4+1 programs now. We've got a good population that stays through the summer. It's getting better each time. And at the same time, we started looking at programs like the DPT program where students were resident pretty much year-round. So net-wise, I'd say the population of the campus has going down maybe 1,000 students. But of that 1,000 students, really, it's only a couple hundred of them that are the net that's down, other than changing graduate programs down and closing some of them that were part-time students, where a student would take a course, you'd count it for a student, but it wasn't a full-time equivalent. So I'd say we've been fairly stable. We've done better than our sister institution in that regard, but still it's like a challenge. Like this year, it looks like we may be down 100 students. At least that's where we are right now. So we're looking at it carefully to see where we can compensate for that. And many of them are from out of state. Actually, we're up in students coming from New Hampshire to Plymouth, but down in the number of students coming from out of state, which makes some sense given the way things are right now for tuition levels comparatively between the different states.
So when would you all like to hear back from us? I guess there's two things. One is to let you know if we'd be willing to extend for a year.
Yeah,
Right.
that's question one.
Okay.
Could we extend for a year with a similar very similar contract to what's there now?
Did we want to include the CPI as part of
Yeah, what we were thinking was we would propose that be a 1-year extension of the current contract with a 7% CPI increase. Now, of course, it's been 2 years. CPI is more than that across 2 years, or if you just use the prior 3 months, it's more. But we were thinking we would use 7.
Well, I'll just say this about that. I would gladly do that if we could have that increase in the tuition support that we got ourselves. We've had flat tuition for 3 years. The state's support's been flat. So, and the costs have gone up. So there's not really a lot of extra to add, but I'm listening today. I'm just listening. So I'm not saying no, but I am saying it would be challenging. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and just for reference, the current agreement is $400,000 annually, so 7%'s $28,000.
Yeah.
Just so we know what we're talking about in terms of.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And are you suggesting we would keep the 30,000 where it is for the extra police coverage and those kind of things?
Yeah, the detail coverage, just, yep, the exact same way that it is today.
Okay.
And then going forward, maybe next year.
Yeah, and so going forward, I mean, I don't think we would wait until next year, but we would start a conversation that started to, talk through the things that are areas where we've got effectively have shared expense. We'd like to talk through things like the tower ladder truck, things like the roads that go through and primarily service the campus, right? Like those have a replacement cost cycle, all those kinds of things. And obviously, they don't. In both of those cases, those are not 100% university costs, right? We wouldn't suggest that the ladder truck that we have to replace on a cycle is 100% used for the university, right? We have to have a truck. Right now, the university is the only reason we need to have one that is a tower ladder truck because Smith and Grafton are larger than any other building we have to service in town. So there, those are examples. Highway, fire,
Sidewalks.
police, sidewalks. Storm water systems that service runoff. We want to be able to inventory and capture that, both so that when we say to you, we believe the university's fair share is this amount of money, you can understand that, and we can speak to the constituents and say, we understand that they don't pay property taxes, but they are paying their fair share. And be able to all say that with a level of confidence that that we feel like we're doing the right thing for the community.
Gotcha.
That's our objective, anyway.
You got a lot of work cut out with the other nonprofits, though, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
We do, yes.
Have you looked at all to see if there are any other communities that have a model for that?
I've looked at some, done some research and it doesn't look very promising.
Yeah, no.
I would say
I was just curious.
the most interesting model to me is the way that the tax discount works for private education in the state. So, for instance, Holderness Prep School or any of the private education, instead of their property tax being 100% tax deductible, it's tax deductible up to a ceiling point, and then after that they pay. So that would be our suggestion. Would be to go back. If this state is going to continue to fund purely on property tax, our proposal would be go back to the state and say, you have this line item right here. You have a model that works for private schools. Could you extend this
To other nonprofits.
because there's 5 different categories, right? The state is one category, and maybe you take it one at a time. Can we extend that to one more category? Could we extend that to medical nonprofits where we know that in general the revenue's more there than it might be in some of the other categories? So that would be where I would suggest starting with the legislature and saying, this is our funding model for the state. Can we look at, something like this?
Yeah, gotcha.
And would that take a legislative action to be able to do that?
So if
You
you're
can
going back to this.
voluntarily enter into agreements.
That's the other option, right?
Yeah,
Is to
there's
go
that
one
too.
by one and
Yeah.
voluntarily enter into agreements. Yep. Which I think we need to pursue both.
Yeah,
With the exception of the university, that is exempt, but
right,
even from a pilot. Right.
okay.
And actually Sally Fellows will be in a bit, right?
Tonight?
She's
Is
gonna
she
be
in tonight on the agenda?
Oh, yes, yeah.
I think so.
To talk about a tax issue, I believe. Actually, I spoke with her,
She's still on the agenda? Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
so see what she says.
All right, well, we're.
Sounds good. When's convenient for you all to come back?
A month?
We have a meeting in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, we have one already scheduled?
I think I can tell you.
Oh, wait, we have our board meeting scheduled, yep.
We're good with an extension. What we're going to have to talk about is whether we can afford to pay any more than we've gotten already. So that's going to be our internal discussion. I don't have any problem with extending. I'm not sure about the other part. We're going to have to think about it and see what resources we have.
Sounds fair to me.
Sounds good. Do we want to cover, in 2 weeks, we want to cover it in our normal session, or do we want a special meeting time?
You're the chair.
Congratulations.
I mean, we're all here at 5 o'clock 2 weeks from today. I don't know how inconvenient or not that is for the three of you to,
So that's the 13th?
that would be the 13th, yeah.
Are you going?
I'm just making sure when it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if that's possible, we don't have to call a special meeting and notice it and all that.
It's actually 3 weeks.
3 weeks? So it's the 20th.
Some of us will be here. I don't know yet. I'll have to look at my calendar. But if I'm here, I'm glad to come. Yeah.
I can be here on the 13th.
Okay. You won't be here?
I won't be here on.
How about the 6th?
No, the 20th, not the 13th. Sorry, Tracy.
Sorry. 20th I can do.
20th
Okay.
works for me as well.
That's
Oh, no, it is the
The
13th.
13th.
And the
I
27th.
thought someone said 2 weeks.
I did.
I know, I gotta get it together.
So what's
So
the
the
next time
20, I mean, we could do the 27th.
You're the 27th? It's just more important that Tracy's here.
Totally understand.
She's the one that'll give you a hard time.
Tracy.
Just not the 13th.
The 27th, and we'll put it first on the agenda.
So you're not sticking around and having to drive back at midnight.
Listen to purchase orders.
13th, my son's graduating, so I don't want to miss
You
that.
can't
Oh,
miss
you
that.
can't miss that. That's important. High school?
No, only
College?
6th grade.
Oh, sixth grade graduation, okay.
And still important.
Still very important, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, thanks all. And
Thank you.
we really could use your help as we're starting to think through this. And then we'll try to help you with what you need to get from the legislature as well.
Well, as an alum and a former employee, I'm more than happy to speak highly of the university
Great.
and its importance.
Right.
I think that I can speak for the board in saying that we all firmly believe that your academic mission is of greatest importance.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Zach.
Come down anytime.
Okay, yeah.
Twice a month we meet, on Monday evening, 5 o'clock.
I don't know if I'd like to stay until midnight.
We've never
There's
been here
enough
till
of those
midnight.
things with the university.
Sure I do.
Tracy's
So you'll
got
get
a
it.
little bit of a drive.
Literally.
Yeah, she does.
Oh, wait.
She lit?
Aye.
That's a little bit of a drive. It's a little bit of a drive.
Do we want to adjourn until 5?
And Kathy had mentioned.
Any
if
other
you
work
wanted to
session
do
items?
Non-public.
Oh, we want to do the non-public up front and
That way we
then,
Instead
can
of
get
at
out
the end.
before the,
9.
Want to grab a public comment?
yeah,
at least?
I would love to. Any public comments?
Where do we start? That's the question.
What
It's the
was,
same, it's the same as it's always been. They're crying poverty. They just built a $27 million building over there. They're always broke, they never have any money. Guess what? They can find the money if they need it. If they really want to be good partners with us, they would at least come up with a formula, or you people in front here could come up with a formula that makes sense with a cost of living escalator in it. The budget, the fire and police budget have gone up about 30% since 2008. How much more money have you gotten out of the university since then?
well, I'll say that at the height, we were getting around 700,000 and the current agreement is for 400, so significantly
Give the
less.
money back.
Yes.
I don't, when I say you.
Yeah, collectively,
I'm talking about
us,
the board.
we,
Not your board, there was other boards before you, I understand that.
right.
We all have the same problem, the only difference is, they bring the problems to us. We have to solve them. Alex and this gentleman here and Tom, it is a public life and safety agreement. That's what we're talking about. If this is an unsafe town, who wants to send their kids here? Nobody.
Hmm.
So when they keep telling you that they give us all of this stuff, they're not giving us anything. Would this town look different if they weren't here? Absolutely it would look different. This has always been a hub community. When this started back in 1870, college up here, there was 70 students, 70. I think the number he quoted was 5,300. Is that what he says here now?
3750.
3750
Undergrad.
currently, undergrad, yeah. I think the number you just quoted was maybe the peak number.
So what is it now?
3750 undergrad.
So there's 3750. When I was on the board in 2006, that number was the same. So you should be getting at least what you were getting before.
Mhm.
Our costs don't go down either.
Right.
So if we can't provide a safe environment for these people, what happens? Their enrollment goes down even more. We now have 3 more officers, 2 or 3 anyway, I think it's 3 now. We have another firefighter we're gonna put on. Do we have him yet, Tom?
July 1.
Okay. Those are costs that we have to bear. Why? Well, because we have student population that no other towns have. You go to some of the other towns and find out what they got for fire and police, you'd be really shocked to know that they don't have as many as we do. That's for sure. So, I mean, when you stop and think about it, yes, do we want to be partners? Yeah, I'd love to be a partner with them, a good, honest partner. They've never been honest with us. That's the truth of the matter. Since I was on the board, they've built they built about 4 buildings since I've been on, off the board. Where does all that money come from? You mean to tell me they're not making money on those dorms over there? Who protects them? We do. Who gives them a police department up there? You guys do. You actually appoint their officers. Now, if we didn't have them up there, would it be more of an expense to us? Absolutely it would be. I'd be the first to admit that.
Mhm.
But by giving them appointments, you're also giving them a little more leeway than they would normally have too. Because most of the problems they keep on campus and it's kind of kept quiet. If our officers, if we had to hire more officers and send them on campus, there'd be a little different policing model I think we'd be dealing with than we are dealing with them. So anyway, I guess I'm concerned as a citizen that don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. And I don't disagree with the legislative solution at all. That's the best way to solve this problem. When we did the first contract, we had the legislature come up here. We had meetings right in this room. We had the town here. I mean, it was quite a brouhaha. And it scared them enough for them to give us $400,000 that year. Because the legislature came out and said to them, either you solve it or we're gonna solve it. And if we solve it, you might not like what the outcome is. That's what they told Don Wharton when he was here. So he solved it. And he also said to me, Paul, this is a good start. The key word there is start. So when I heard that money was given back to them, I couldn't believe it. I almost fell out of my chair when the boards have given them money. Has our expenses gone down any?
Never.
Well, that's the problem. You gotta play hardball with these guys. They can cry if they want, all they want. If they want to negotiate in good faith, they would be giving you more money, because you can prove right now that your budgets have gone up, you've had to staff more because of the population up there. They have been doing things, I know what they'll say, well, yeah, but the dorms come out of a different pocket. Those are bonds, those are something different. Yeah, they're right. They have all these different little pockets that they get money from. But still, Plymouth is still a pretty good value, considering some of the other areas. I'm a graduate from there too, just so you know. And I would really like to see you guys play hardball with them. Sometimes you have to take a little bit of a hit for a while until you finally get them straightened out. But my ploy, and I've said this to you, is this. As soon as they start wanting to give you a lesson, well, I guess we need to call the Board of Trustees over in Durham, and we need to talk to our legislators, because you're not negotiating in good faith. It's that simple. Our costs have gone up too. So we're supposed to eat it? No, I don't think so. I'm glad to hear that you're thinking about the nonprofits too. I think there is a way to get to them, and I think the way you can get to them is you're not going to charge them a tax. You're going to charge them a life and safety fee. That's what you're going to charge them. Fire and police protection. We don't expect you to pay for the schools. We don't expect you to pay for the county. We don't expect you to pay for the state either. We know you're 503 or whatever you are, tax exempt. But we still have to staff as though there was a fire in your building right now. So you guys, here's the bill, pay it. And if you have to go to court, guess what? Go to court. That's all I've got to say in public comments. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask me, I'm more than happy to answer them. It was we had to play hardball with Don Wharton. He was a tough guy to deal with. John Tucker, myself, and Quinn Blaine were the ones who negotiated the first contract. It was not an easy slog, believe me. They're already trying to put you off.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to him, the Cheshire Cat sitting over here. That's what I call him, anyway, the Cheshire Cat. But he's pretty sharp. He's not stupid. He's a pretty smart man. Pleading on your sympathy. Pleading on your sympathy. Notice he didn't say anything about us that live here in town. Oh, we want to be good partners with you. You want to be a good partner. Everybody that tells me they want to be a good neighbor, first thing I say is, are you paying taxes? Are you paying something in lieu of taxes? It's just like Mid-State Medical. They want to be good partners. Why the hell are they not paying taxes? I'm done.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your public comments.
Did you get all this down?
Probably not. Kathy's probably heard it more than anybody from me. She was here when I was here. So, but anyway, thank you for your patience and your time.
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Good luck in your negotiations. If I can be of any help, please don't hesitate to let me know. Not that I can do a lot, but I may be able to help you in some way, shape, or form. I might be able to.
I'll tell you, admittedly, I think one of the strongest things we can do in the negotiations are having people like yourself in the audience, right? I think knowing we had a vote at town meeting to deal with this issue, and knowing that there are people in the audience, that's the strongest thing we can do in terms of this continued negotiation, in my opinion. So if you know people who directly care about this issue, they don't have to even say anything, but their presence here is very helpful. And your presence here today is very helpful. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and good luck. You're gonna need it. The year extension is kind of a good idea. I don't disagree with that to a point. You're trying to relieve a little of the pressure there on both sides, and I understand that. However, I hope they don't think that is a sign of weakness, that's all. In other words, unprepared.
Yes.
That's my only concern. But, hey,
If they don't want to
while
go,
you're running the show, you're doing the best you can.
if they don't want to go with a 1-year extension, we have an alternative plan. So
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they'll go with the 1-year extension because it's no more cost to them.
Almost done.
Yeah.
almost none.
I mean,
Almost none. We're still asking for
Well-
7%, but yes, effectively.
it's
Yeah.
very little. So thank you anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
So,
Joe is on as well. I don't know if he has something to say.
he's in the non-public, right? Is that true?
Yeah.
We'd have to officially start the meeting.
We did. We just
We
didn't.
did.
I didn't gavel us in, but we started.
I had you opening the meeting at 3:04.
3:04. Once Dawn got here. Thanks, Ann.
You.
Thanks to Ann.
Oh, that you mean thanks to,
You're not Ann.
thanks to, you didn't say it.
I did say Ann. God. Andrew, play back the record.
Do we have instant replay?
We should. I should be able to push a button, turn a knob.
Did you say?
Thank you guys for being here as well.
Thank you.
We should
It's
be.
the rumor.
Yeah, so you're coming back at 5.
Yeah, we'll see you at 5. Thank you.
See ya.
Want this door closed?
Yes, please. All right, I'll make a motion to go into non-public according to RSA 91-A:3, number 2, A.
A. Yeah.
A.
Hey.
I will second that.
Neil, your vote.
Aye.
Marianne.
Aye.
Zach, aye. Bill.
Aye.
Ted.
Aye.